Everybody's a narcissist. That is statistically impossible. It is. It's statistically impossible. And we have to stop using that label because it gives us an off-ramp to be able to deal with hurt. And to some extent, I think this is the same thing that we've done with autism. We've made autism so broad that everybody's autistic. We've lost quirky. We no longer have quirky. We're no longer allowed to say people are just kind of weird, right? Because that's offensive rather than just an observation. And so we've lost like, oh, that person's quirky. They're not quirky anymore. They're autistic, which, okay, maybe, but there's got to be space there for us to navigate both. Because when we have this conversation about narcissism or NPD or sociopath, we confuse things like selfishness and immaturity, poor boundaries. How many people have poor boundaries? It doesn't mean that they're diagnosable. They just have poor boundaries. Unresolved trauma. Right now, I'm walking through something with a client where he was volunteering under someone who did something that he thought was against kind of their organization's ethos. He reached out to her. He said, hey, I think this was against our ethos. He talked to her about it. She dismissed him. He went above her, which is part of their organizational ethos. And she immediately was like, well, I don't know if you should be on this team if you can't trust my leadership. It's a volunteer position. I promise you that woman has unresolved trauma. I promise. Guarantee it. Right? Because what happens is when we have unresolved trauma, we start to get where we are absolutely sensitive to everything. Right after I had my knee surgery, so I had the total knee replacement. And right after that, my wife bought me this great, it's awesome, this cooling thing. You wrap it around your leg. And so instead of ice, it's this cold water. You actually put ice in the water, frozen water bottles, and it runs around your leg. But the strap that they gave to put around it, literally my brain starts screaming, danger, danger, danger. Because my brain knows something's wrong with my knee. It doesn't know what. My brain, there's got to be a difference between our brain and our mind. My brain can't reason, oh, well, we did that intentionally, so it's okay. The treatment for this was literally to go to PT, and my PT therapist took a towel and she rubbed it over my knee until my brain calmed down. And then without me paying attention, she took the towel and put it back on my knee to see what I would do. We do that with unresolved trauma all the time. If you were truly hurt by someone who is NPD or sociopath or psychopath, you're going to confuse problematic behavior with trauma because you haven't resolved your own trauma yet. And what we've done is we've made the bar for these diagnoses so low that we look at things like, oh, well, he cheated, so he's a narcissist. Oh, she cheated, so she's a psychopath. No, I hate to say this because I'm not condoning cheating, but a lot of cheaters are neither one of those. They're just human and they make mistakes. Oh, he lies, so he's a sociopath. He's a narcissist. Oh man, she lies all the time. And you know what? I have people in my life, I have people that I'm related to, that they just, when they're breathing, they're just lying. That means they're a compulsive liar. It doesn't necessarily mean they're a sociopath. Entitlement, that doesn't mean that they have some diagnosis. It could just mean that they were poorly raised and they've never grown up. And let's talk about the most difficult one. Sometimes people are just jerks. Sometimes people, they're just selfish jerks. And while that's bad, and we need to be able to deal with that, that does not make them a narcissist, nor does it make them a psychopath, nor does it make them anything other than selfish. And we need to make that distinction. Because here's the bottom line. When someone is a sociopath, they're just harmful and irresponsible. Wrong, right? Hopefully. If I've convinced you of anything in the last 10 minutes, you would say, well, wait, not maybe, or maybe not. Excuse me. Imagine if I could speak. There it is, Aim. I think that's the first time I've said that one in a while. I have a friend that gives me a little bit of grief about that one. But here's the thing. They can be. We have to look at it. But here's the problem. The overuse of these labels can actually hurt people. It can hurt the person. Here's the thing we don't think about much. It can not only hurt the person you're accusing it of, but it can also hurt you. Because the overuse of these labels replaces precision of terminology with outrage. It can stop healing because we make every painful relationship into a pathology story instead of a completely honest one. And this is where I lose people. And I know I lose people here because they've told me, I don't agree with you there. Okay, that's fine. But then let's talk about that. Why don't you agree with me there? Because here's what I see when I talk to people who everybody's a sociopath. I can watch it. They'll be healing. They'll be moving on. And then they get caught up in thinking about their ex, their dad, whoever. And in some cases, that person really will be a narcissist. I can think of one client I had, X was definitely a narcissist, was diagnosed with it, all the things. And when my client would stop focusing on their own healing and start thinking about the X, everybody became a narcissist. And invariably what would happen is that client would then spiral out of control into their own trauma, into their own depths. And they would lose control. And I watch this all the time. People get mad and they stop listening because they want to prove that other people are more harmful than them. Other people did bigger wrongs than them. And when I'm like, yeah, that might be true, but you're still responsible for your healing and you need to stop throwing labels around, they just stop listening or they lose their mind, which could be labeled a behavior. And here's what's happened to modern society. We live in a strange time where literally everybody's ex is a narcissist. So I don't know that I actually believe the numbers in that picture, but I do believe that certainly I cannot tell you how many people I have sat in the room with and their ex is a narcissist. I had one client, late 20s, early 30s, dating a guy, break up with him, date him, break up with him, date up with him, break up with him. Finally broke up with him and he was a narcissist. I was like, wait, if he's a narcissist, so are you. You guys are literally the same person. And I know if you've been to therapy, especially if you've been to the therapist that's completely affirming of everything you say, you just lost your mind. So be it. She lost her mind for a hot second. And then she came back and she's like, well, what do you mean? And we had probably a month of the best sessions that I ever had with her because we talked about like, look, not everybody who does bad things, not every selfish person is toxic. They're selfish. And when everything's toxic, then toxic loses its meaning, right? It's kind of like my favorite. I've probably talked about this, I bet you 50 times over the course of the years I've been doing this podcast. The movie The Incredibles, when the young boy is running, Chase is running, and he's speeding and he's going faster. And I'm like, oh, go faster. And then they're like, no, not that fast, slow down. And all the things. Then later he and his mom are talking and she's like, well, honey, everyone's special. And he says some of the most profound words that we should all learn. If everyone's special, no one is. And we can run that out for everything. I've told clients in the past, if everything's a problem, nothing's a problem. If every person is toxic, no one's toxic. If every liar is a psychopath, there is no there is no psychopath because it can't be everybody because by definition, everybody is average. Everybody equals average or normal, right? This is a little bit of a side rant, but it's one of my beefs with modern schools, grade inflation. Everybody has A's and B's. Well, then A's and B's are just old school C's. OG, baby. But let's just talk for a few minutes about what happens when we weaponize labels. And that's what we're doing. We're weaponizing labels. The person married to a quiet person, they're just a sociopath. No, they're just quiet. The person married to somebody who always talks to them, well, they're just narcissists. No, they just like to talk. My wife loves to talk at night. I don't. I want to read and go to sleep. She does not like to talk in the morning, which makes no sense to me. I want to talk in the morning. We live in the tension and we figure it out.